Now, quick little history lesson. We become a country in 1776. We say all men are created equal. Women get the right to vote in 1920 with the passage of the 19th Amendment. When do black men, Latino men, Asian men, Indian men, Fijian men, Pacific Islander men, Puerto Rican men, Filipino men, Sri Lankan men, Afghani men, Pakistani men, Middle Eastern men. When do men of color get the right to vote? 1870, 50 years before women with the 15th Amendment. So by 1920, when women get the right to vote, everyone can vote if you're of age, right? Not in the Deep South.
During Reconstruction, 1865, 1877, we had blacks acquiring wealth. We had some semblance of economic power. And what happened? 1866, the Ku Klux Klan, Pulaski, Tennessee, formed this group to prevent blacks from accumulating wealth, accumulating power. If you were trying to vote, God forbid, if you were trying to exercise your right to vote in this country, you could be lynched.
If you wanted to vote, you'd have to walk up these stairs in Selma, Alabama, go to the courthouse. By the way, you see how ugly green that is? It was ugly green in 1965, it's ugly green today. You'd walk up those stairs and you'd see someone who looks like me. And you know what I'd say to a white person? Go ahead, please, enter and register. Person of color would walk up those stairs and I'd say, stop. Why? Prove to me you can read and you can write. Excuse me? This gentleman comes in, he's the next degree up, he has his master's. You know if you ask somebody that had a master's? How many grains of sand in my hand? You know if you ask somebody who was a PhD, had their doctorate? How many jelly beans in a jar? Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker, John Lewis, who's in the white coat, said no more. May I introduce him first? He's leading a march across this bridge. 600 people are walking across this bridge. There's women and children with him. The date of the march is March 7, 1965. Ladies and gentlemen, notice these men right here, called state troopers. They stop John Lewis. They say, stop, turn your group around, or we're going to beat the hell out of you and your group. John Lewis says we're Americans. We have the right to vote. We're nonviolent. We're not turning around. The trooper said attack. And attack they did. It's a picture of John Lewis being struck over the head by the trooper's nightstick. Trooper came up to him a second time, hit him as hard as he could over the head. You've all bumped your head, you know what that feels like? His hit so hard on the head, it cracked his skull. Ladies and gentlemen, we cross that same bridge. We march to where they're beaten and make a promise that when we turn 18, we will register to vote because voting is power. He tells our young people there's some good things to be arrested for. Go make trouble. Make good trouble. Does anybody know what John Lewis does for a living today? He's a member of the United States Congress. He represents the state of Georgia. He's beaten bloody many times, always nonviolent. You know what his nickname is in Congress? My favorite nickname. They call him the conscience of Congress. And Lord knows they need a conscience, don't they?
In Selma, Alabama, in 1965, only 2.1% of blacks of voting age were registered to vote. We made a decision, the movement did, that we will march from Selma to Montgomery to dramatize to the nation and to the world that people of color wanted to register to vote. Sunday, March 7th, after attending church, about 600 of us gathered outside of the church on a playground, participated in a nonviolent workshop, and then we lined up in twos to walk in an orderly, peaceful, nonviolent fashion from Selma to Montgomery. We slowly walked through the streets of Selma. We came close to the edge of the bridge, crossing the Alabama River, and we continued to walk. We came to the highest point on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, crossing the Alabama River, Down below, we saw a sea of blue, Alabama state troopers. And we continued to walk. We came within hearing distance of the state troopers, and a man identified himself and said, "I'm Major John Cloud of the Alabama State Troopers. I give you 3 minutes to disperse and return to your church." In less than a minute and a half, Major John Cloud said, "Troopers, advance!" And you saw these men putting on their gas masks. They came toward us, beating us with nightsticks, bullwhips, trampling us with horses, releasing their tear gas. I was hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick. Had a concussion there at the bridge. I thought I was going to die. Thought I saw death. The next thing I knew, I had been admitted to the Good Samaritan Hospital in Selma. Early that Monday morning, the next day, Dr. King and Reverend Abernathy came by to see me, and Dr. King said, "Don't worry, John. We will make it from Selma to Montgomery, and the voting rights act will be passed." He issued a call that Tuesday, 2 days later, March 9th, for religious leaders to come to Selma. More than 1,000 priests, rabbis, nuns, and ministers came to Selma and marched to the point where we had been beaten 2 days early.